A lot of successful Americans are seriously considering renouncing the US citizenship right now. Higher taxes, more reporting, more restrictions. The idea of just being done with it has never been more popular. I almost did it myself. I spent over 3 years seriously considering it. I had the second passport ready, had the US Embassy renunciation questionnaire filled out, I had the country filled out, and in the end, I didn't renounce. And today, I'm going to explain exactly why. Because for the vast majority of Americans, there's a smarter path that gets you most of the benefit without giving up everything you lose by renouncing. I'm Vincenzo. I left Wall Street 15 years ago to live abroad. I have an Italian passport through ancestry, and I've been running an international tax firm ever since, working with Americans in over 93 countries. We help people renounce when it actually makes sense. And we talk a lot of people out of renouncing when it doesn't. Today, we're covering why renunciation is more permanent than people realize, the small alternative I personally use to legally pay around 10% tax, and the 3 situations where renunciation actually does make sense. Most people thinking about renouncing focus on the tax savings. They don't focus enough on what they're actually giving up. You lose the right to live in the United States, not just for now, permanently. If your life changes years from now and you want to come back, you just can't come back. You apply for a visa like anyone else, and that visa can get denied. I've seen this happen. Clients renounce, then their parents get sick, and they realize they need to be back in the US to take care of them. By then, the door is closed. They have to apply for the tourist visa, and if the consular officer decides that renunciation looks like it was tax motivated, the visa gets rejected on the spot. I've even helped Andrew Henderson, the nomad capitalist, renounce, and this exact same thing happened to him. You also lose access to US assets in a clean way. If you have US real estate, US investments with a K-1, a US pension or 401k, you still have to file a US tax return on that income. Renunciation doesn't just make those go away. And the renunciation itself isn't free. If your net worth is over $2 million, or your average tax liability over the prior 5 years was over a certain threshold, you're treated as a covered expatriate. The IRS treats you as having sold every asset you own the day before you renounce and taxes you on those gains. This is called the exit tax. You may also need to liquidate your retirement accounts. So for someone who with appreciated assets or a big retirement or 401k, this bill can be enormous. This is the part that stopped me. I have US real estate. I have investments in US venture capital and private equity funds. I have family in the US. Renunciation doesn't eliminate any of that. It just makes it harder to manage. Now, if renunciation is so expensive, why are people still considering it? Because they think it's the only way to legally lower their taxes. It's not. This is where the path I actually took came in. Here's what my own setup looks like and what we set up for clients in similar situations. First, I qualify for the foreign income exclusion. That lets me pay myself roughly $130,000 a year in salary, completely free from US tax. My business is structured offshore correctly, which means the corporate tax rate I'm paying is around 10% instead of the much higher US corporate rate. I pay a small amount of tax to Brazil, my country of residence, because I'm a fiscal resident there. Add all that together, and my effective tax rate is around 10.5%. Legally reported, fully compliant with every US filing requirement that applies to a citizen. Now compare that to renouncing. A US citizen owning 50% or less of an offshore company can pay 0% federal tax in a place like Panama or UAE, but they still have to pay the exit tax up front. They lose access to the US permanently and lose the ability to do business or invest there cleanly. For most of my clients, the math doesn't actually favor renunciation. It favors building the right structure while keeping the passport. And here's the part that nobody on YouTube talks about. The world is heading towards a global minimum tax. The OECD has been pushing 15% as the floor. Dubai went from 0 to 9%. Singapore's at 17%. Malta just changed their tax pact regime. Even the no tax jurisdictions are moving up. So the whole premise of renouncing to pay 0 tax is a premise that's getting weaker every year. So if you're going to end up paying 10 to 15% anyway, the value of renouncing collapses. And meanwhile, you've permanently given up your US citizenship for a tax benefit that's quietly disappearing. And by the way, you aren't supposed to renounce for tax purposes. So if that's the real reason, I would keep that quiet. Otherwise, you might not be let in the US. It's called the Reed Amendment. That said, there are real situations where renunciation is the right move. Let me walk through who actually fits that profile, because for some people, it's absolutely the right call. 3 situations where renunciation can make sense for the right person. 1, you already have a strong second passport. Not St. Kitts, not Vanuatu, a strong one. Canadian, Spanish, Irish, German, Australian, UK, something with broad visa-free access and economic substance behind it. If you've already got that, the day-to-day cost of giving up the US passport is much lower. And you don't get questioned all the time at the border, which is something I see my clients that only have Caribbean or African passports happen all the time. 2, your life is genuinely no longer connected to the United States. You don't live there, you don't have family that you need to be close to, you don't have major US business interests, you're not going back. And if your relationship with the country is mostly a filing and reporting obligation, then the calculus does change. I have clients that live in the UK, their life is there, they pay a ton of UK tax, and they have limitations on their pensions and their investments due to the US tax code. They're more British than American, and in those cases, it really does make sense to renounce. 3, you're high net worth and you've actually run the math. For ultra high net worth clients with the right country residence, the exit tax is a one-time event and the long-term tax savings can outweigh it. But this only works after careful consideration of your assets, your income type, your country of residence, and the treaties involved. I had another client who was a trader in Singapore. He went from paying millions in tax on capital gains to not even filing a tax return ever for life due to the no capital gains tax in Singapore. If you don't hit any of these 3, my honest recommendation is don't renounce yet. Build the structure first, live abroad properly, use the FEIE, get the foreign tax credits working for you, get your second passport sorted if you don't already have one, then revisit the renunciation question in 3 to 5 years with a clear head. There's a lot of planning to be done before. So if you're set on renouncing, then come plan first, get the structure in the right place while you wait for your second passport, rather than waiting a week before your renunciation appointment. Here's the honest summary. Most Americans seriously consider renunciation can get 80% of the financial benefit without renouncing at all, just by structuring their situation correctly. I'm proof of that, and so are most of our clients. Renunciation is a real legal option, but it's permanent, it's expensive, and the tax case for it is getting weaker as the world moves towards a global minimum tax. If you want to go deeper, the video on the next screen breaks down exactly how I set up my offshore structure to get a 10% effective tax rate. Watch that one next. And if you're thinking through any of this for your own situation, the link below will get you on a call with our team. The earlier you talk to someone who actually does this work, the more options you have.